Hi, welcome to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jamie McFadden, and I'm so excited to have you here. This podcast is about all things wellness. Each week, we will focus on a word of the day, and I interview some of the most inspirational people I know and share that inspiration with you. Join me, let's learn together on What's the Word.
This is the place where I belong.
Hi, welcome back to What's the Word? I'm your host, Jamie McFadden, and I am so happy to be here with you today for this solo episode. We are going to focus on a word that has been resonating with me on some very deep levels in my own life. Alignment, which by definition is all about things literally lining up. I'm going to share a deep personal story with you and give you my favorite tools to get into your own personal alignment. Note, if you are feeling out of alignment right now, there are certainly steps that you can take to gain clarity on where you are. However, timing is a key component, and you are here right now listening to this podcast. Whether this is the first episode you've stumbled on, or if you've been a listener for the past year, I want to thank you for showing up today. If this episode resonates with you, please be sure to subscribe or share with a friend. I have some exciting news that I'll be sharing with you in a little bit, but for now, back to the episode about alignment. So let's get personal. In the past year, I've launched a business, my podcast, my very first book, which reached bestseller in the first 24 hours. I've fallen in love. I've moved to the beach, and I have truly found myself living in alignment, greater than I ever have in my 36 years on this planet. When I think about it, I definitely get emotional. I'm excited, but also because this wasn't the case for many years of my own life. In fact, I spent so many years out of alignment. Back when I was a kid, I suffered from anxiety, depression, and insomnia. I had a deep inner knowing that my spiritual side was connected to other realms, but at that time, when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I didn't know how to handle it. The feelings that I had were so powerful, and at times at that age, they were incredibly scary. Not to mention, I was probably the deepest person that I knew from the youngest day I can remember my life, and I always felt this interconnectedness to the environment around me, to people, to animals, to nature, in such a way that oftentimes was hard for myself and also incredibly hard for my family and friends to understand. It got to a point where I suffered from such severe insomnia, which led to depression and anxiety, that doctors started putting me on medications. I can't even think about how many times I was asked, "What is wrong with me?" Seriously, more times than I can remember. And all the while, I just wanted to be free. I wanted to be me, but I felt like who I was not okay in this world. And not to mention, I was a child before puberty. I was a kid. I was the kid who actually witnessed and saw dead people, quite literally. And of course, I felt like I didn't fit in. I always tried really, really hard at life. But for many years, it was like being on a hamster on a wheel going round and round, totally out of flow, and just doing what I thought I was supposed to do, which was absolutely out of my alignment. I spent years going to therapy, working with coaches, taking different classes at schools, literally reading any and every self-help, breathwork, meditational, religious book I possibly could. And then at one point, I turned it all into my career in my early 20s. Because at that point, I realized I wasn't turning back. And at that point, I realized I wasn't the only person who actually felt these things. After years of fitness, getting myself healthy, sleep psychology studies, yoga, breathwork, journaling, working with some top leading experts in medical fields, I finally freaking found the deepest love for myself. I felt home. And that feeling is the most beautiful feeling that I hope that everyone can feel at some point in their life. I bring this up because so often, and I hear this daily with clients and DMs and messages, that many of us are living in that hamster wheel, in that should, in that state out of alignment. And I'm here to tell you that when we stop listening to the shoulds and we start listening and trusting our inner knowing, even at a young age, we can live our fullest expression. I've witnessed firsthand hundreds, if not thousands of clients, friends, family members, close people in my life find their alignment. And now I've been a bit obsessed, if you will, with figuring out what that means. So now we fast forward to all of these fabulous years later, this wild wave of life, and it's almost as if I'm a different person. But in fact, I am the same person I was in so many ways as that little girl who hid behind all of the masks that I thought I was supposed to fit in. I now get to be here on this podcast sharing with you the truth, and I feel free. I am me. And that moment I consciously chose myself, things started flowing in and out of my life in harmony. Now, to my 5 tips, if this is resonating with you, my 5 tips for helping to guide yourself into your own personal alignment. Now, once again, you know I love self-care. It's something I study every single day of my life. It is something I live, breathe, eat, and focus on. And I want you to know that there's not a one-size-fits-all. So these 5 steps that I'm sharing with you, they certainly have helped guide me into alignment. They certainly have helped guide many of my clients and my classes. However, I want you to dig deep today and ask yourself, who am I? And then we get to the 5 steps. Number 1, when you ask that question, who am I want you to take some breaths. The number 1 thing I would suggest is to breathe, to pause. Start to listen to your inner knowing and commit to trusting yourself. Whether or not you know this, you are whole as you are right now. You are beautiful, you are unique, and you are whole. Oftentimes, we're searching for these answers in all of these external fields when we have the inner knowing. If I could go back and speak with my younger self, I would tell that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old girl that's journaling all of these wild dreams she's having and how scared she was, I would tell her, you're on to something. Be brave, be courageous, tell the truth, and let people know who you are, because who you are is beautiful. Number 2, bring awareness to your values. If you haven't done a values exercise in a while or at all, I highly suggest doing one. In fact, I'm going to be sharing one with you on my website so that you can have access to it. It's in my book, but it is one of the best ways that we can really check in with our own personal alignment. When we know what our values are and we know what matters most to us in our own world, in our own lives, that helps us be ourselves. For example, I'll share with you mine. My top 3 values are health, family, and adventure. And every day, somewhere along the day, at least one time I ask myself, am I in alignment with family right now? Am I in alignment with my health right now? Am I having some adventure today? And I will tell you, the days that I can answer those questions, all 3 of them, yes, yes, and yes, I feel an inner flow, and it's dynamic. So number 2 is values. Number 3, believe. Well, believe right there. That's it. Believe that you are right on time. So often we're rushing around. We live in a world where we got to get here, we got to go there, we got to do this, we got to be so busy. We try to take shortcuts. We live life in the fast lane. And even in those moments when we're being tumbled by the waves of life and feeling totally crashed on, believing that we are right where we are meant to be. And then continuing with that belief, even if it's just a smidge, because I know when I had insomnia and depression and all the things that I look back on and how much of a struggle it was every single day to just get out of bed and be a child and be a kid. I can vividly remember deep, deep, deep down praying, hoping, wishing for this little belief that somehow I would feel better. So even if it's just a smidge, hang on to that smidge and just keep showing up for yourself. Number 4, journal. Journal, journal, journal. Write it down. Get a pen, get a paper, get a notebook. Heck, if you need to, just use your phone. Take 5 to 10 minutes a day. Today. Start today if you haven't already, and just dump your subconscious thoughts, your stream of consciousness. Dump it out on paper. Sometimes I hear, well, it feels silly. I don't know what to write. Well, this is why I tell you, get a timer. If you're new to journaling, just start writing. If you need prompts, I've got a whole list of them on my website. You can use prompts. If you don't, all you need to do is write, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What's on your mind? Even if it's your to-do list. Getting things out of our head and onto paper helps us to collect our own personal data. When we collect data, we can reflect upon it and we can start to notice trends. When we notice trends, we can decide and bring awareness to where we need to make shifts. So when we journal, it's very cathartic as well. Think about journaling today. Number 5, this one goes without being said, self-care, self-care, self-care. Do something for yourself that feels good today and every day. This life is precious. Sometimes we forget how precious it is until something really shakes us and then we remember. I encourage you today, take that moment of gratitude. Go for a walk outside. Whatever it is that makes you feel good, play your favorite song. Call someone that you love that makes you feel uplifted every time you talk to them. Do something kind for someone else. There are so many ways that we can practice self-care. Heck, I wrote a whole book on it. And when we start taking better care of ourselves, we have more to give to others. Right now, we are in a world that so many of us are dealing with depression, anxiety, insomnia, on different medications, battling the thoughts and the voices in our own head, being in our own way. And I'm here to remind you that when we start taking those steps, even when we don't want to, I didn't want to work out, I didn't want to go to therapy when I was a kid, I didn't want to do all these things. But guess what? Sometimes we have to do the things that we don't necessarily feel like doing in the moment because we're aware of the outcome and we're aware that it will help us. So do something for yourself today so you can be, instead of worry or overanalyze whatever you couldn't or didn't do or whatever is out of your control. Get that off your plate. Take care of yourself. So once again, the 5 things. Number 1, breathe. Number 2, figure out your values. Number 3, have some belief in yourself, in this life. Trust that little voice. Journal is number 4. And number 5, practice self-care. With these 5 things, you continue to meet yourself, know yourself, and grow. And that growth will build alignment. This obviously is a lifetime. Even though right now I'm feeling more in alignment than I ever have, obviously I'm well aware life is a wave. Sometimes we're going to ride it high. Sometimes we're going to be crashed by the waves. Other times we're going to feel like we're floating in the salt water. Sometimes we're going to be freezing in the Pacific Ocean water. So just meet yourself where you're at. Do the best with what you can. And really, bottom line, when we discover ourselves and we meet ourselves where we're at every day, we can love ourselves more. We can find our flow and continue living in alignment. Speaking of alignment, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We have released over 70 episodes of this podcast, What's the Word? If you don't know the origin story behind this podcast, I launched this with one of my best friends, Louis Martinez, who is the producer, editor, and someone who really pushed me to follow this dream and pursue this passion that I've had for so many years. And we now have over 70 episodes. I've chosen a word of the day every episode because that's been my thing for all these years. When I teach workouts, when I've led classes, I always pick a word of the day. I wake up, I think about a word of the day. Today it's alignment. And I want you to know, as life grows, I have grown as well. And this podcast has grown thanks to you. So we're now going to take this podcast into a new level. Next week, we have some wonderful and exciting news to share. If you are listening right now, as a thank you for being a listener, a subscriber to this podcast, I have a giveaway. And that giveaway is a one-on-one session with me to enhance your self-care. I'm also going to give away a secondary giveaway, which is a signed copy of my book. And all you have to do is share this podcast with someone and then send me the screenshot. You can send it to me as a DM on Instagram. You could send it to my email or my website. However you do that, just that's what's going to put you in for this contest. Winners will be picked next week. And that is my thank you to you. I have so much gratitude for you. We are growing, we are expanding, and it is very exciting. So please stay tuned for the news that we have, and I want you to be a part of it. Once again, this life is a journey. Let us continue to ride the waves and learn how to show up as our most authentic selves. I'm your host, Jamie McFadden. I have so much gratitude for you being a part of this community. And on that note, stay tuned. I look forward to sharing the news with you next week. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to like and subscribe, share it with a friend. The more we can raise awareness to self-care and to this podcast, the more we can continue bringing you incredible episodes like this. Once again, I honor you, and I am so thankful, and I'll see you next week. Bye! Thank you for joining me here at What's the Word? Follow us on social media with the links on the screen, and don't forget to like and share with your friend. Your support helps us grow and continue to make inspirational content. See you next time on What's the Word?